Hey everybody, this is going to be my top 10 favorite video games of all time. We did this video, it was one of the first ones on the channel actually. Um, but I actually wanted to redo a couple of those choices and add some honorable mentions. Um, I think that these are just my personal choices, so if you have different choices, um, then you're perfectly entitled to that. But there's so many video games out there that this is kind of like choosing your favorite songs or your favorite movies of all time. It's there's um, I would say that there's probably more choices for this than almost anything, nearly in, excluding maybe those other two choices that I mentioned there. But yeah, so you're entitled to your own choices. These are just my picks, and it's in no particular order. So let's get to it. Number one on here is going to be Super Smash Bros. 64. This is going to be, I think, probably if I was to order this, this would probably be my number one choice. Super Smash Bros. 64. I think is regarded as one of the greatest games of all time, probably top five by most people. Um, it's certainly by me, and my favorite character was Kirby. Um, the stage that I remember the most was probably the one that looked a little bit like Pokemon Stadium, I think. Um, if I remember correctly, it's been a while. I was like 10 years old since I played that. Um, but yeah, let's get on to number two on here, which is going to be a game for the Game Boy Advance, Pokemon's the second generation game. I'm not going to mention Gold, Silver, or Crystal specifically because obviously I would say that they're all pretty much the same. They have you know version exclusive Pokemon and stuff like that, but that's really negligible. Um, so yeah, the second generation Pokemon games. I remember when I was like 6 years old playing these games. Like in a stroller. Actually, I was that young that I was still in like a stroller, and we still had malls. There was no pandemic and all that shit, and yeah. So I remember just this is like one of my earliest memories. But yeah, I remember my first starter was Totodile, and this was one of the first games I actually played, and it was certainly the first console game I played. I mean, not like a television console, but like portable console, like one that wasn't just on a computer. Um, yeah, I mostly grew up with, like computer CD games, like the ones that you installed and all that shit. Um, but yeah, speaking of which, number three on here is going to be Oregon Trail, actually, which is one of the first games, actually, I think, created for the PC, along with like things like Asteroids and maybe like like computer versions of chess, I think. But yeah, Oregon Trail is one of the first games I actually remember playing on a school computer. Actually, it was on one of those like those big bulky like Apple computers that was all in one. It wasn't like a laptop like this one. It was like one of those big, huge square monitors that had the computer built into it. Um, yeah, but I have really fond memories of those, and I remember picking my things at the beginning of the journey, and I remember getting messages as I was traveling along, like that my oxen had died and stuff, and but yeah, that was a really beautiful game. It taught me a lot of things about American history. I eventually went on to become a history major, actually. And this game was one of my first introductions to that, and one of my first introductions to video games from a more fun point of view. and a more apropos point of view to this video. Yeah, so Oregon Trail is a really important game in my life, and I think it's a really well-made game for the time. I know it's certainly simple by today's standards, but that goes without saying. Um, but yeah, as ridiculous as this might sound, I hope that we could get like some sort of like I don't know. I guess if you could install it on your phone, maybe on your smartphone could probably handle that now. Um, yeah. Number four on here is going to be Raiden 2. The it's like a jet fighter game or something. It's you play as like this red jet fighter. It's like a Japanese game. It's got like it's more along like the like Star Wars or Star Trek than actual anything realistic like a like a Call of Duty thing, like an actual military thing. It's more like a like laser beams and actual stuff like that. It's bright. It's very like anime esque. Um, it's got a very a Japanese cultural vibe to it in terms of the art, in terms of a kind of cartoony looking thing. But yeah, it's a really cool game. It's an arcadey game. It's a game you could pour wallets and wallets and wallets full of quarters into. Uh, One of my favorite games. I had it on my PC at home, so I didn't have to pour quarters into it. But still, I would have if I had to have. It was an awesome game, and it kicked ass, and I died so many times midway through the level and had to restart. Uh, Difficult game, yeah, at least for me. Uh, Number five on here is going to be SmackDown versus Raw 2006. This is one of my favorite of all time games, I think, actually, especially because of the creator wrestler was not only, sorry, a little bit of jaw myoclonus. Um, Not only was the create a wrestler feature on this game awesome, and it was in a future-esque um, type of graphic system, but also it had a lot of moves in it, and it gave you a lot of options to edit. It wasn't just preset faces and stuff like that. So I think that this game, um, sorry if you hear my dog in the background. um, but yeah, this game actually, I think, um, it had a lot of options, and a lot of the games that, um, sorry, I have a little bit of John Michaelis. A lot of the games that surfed on their graphics didn't give you as many, like, give you the option to change the width of someone's nostrils or eyebrows or something. But this game actually did, and it didn't sacrifice the amount of stuff in the game, like the amount of options that you had. Uh, it didn't cut that in order to give you better graphics. It wasn't an issue of how much there was or how good it looked. It looked really good, and there was a lot of it. So it was one of the few games that really didn't cut either corner. And that's why I liked it, because it gave me the option to do so many, like Fantasy Federation type things. Because I'm a big ECW fan. I own all three of the 3 disc sets that give you the ECW unreleased DVDs, and pretty much I have everything that WWE's put out on the whole thing that I could find about it. And I love ECW, so yeah, I also watch the stuff on YouTube when I can. Um, yeah, it introduced me to a lot of awesome music. Uh, you know, like the Sandman's entrance theme. Pantera. Um, but yeah, it gave me the option to recreate these people in this game. And this game had so many match types, and it gave you the option to put a lot of people on screen at once without it cutting the frame rate very badly. This game looked good, and it played well. There was not as many games that I could say um, to this degree. Um, you know that they were 3D and that they didn't cut the corner of content. This game really, especially because it's a WWE game, I'm really impressed actually because this was one of the ones I obviously wanted to talk about the most because it's one of my favorites. Um, but yeah, I think that this game they didn't cut any corners based on surfing on their name because WWE has obviously it's kind of like when McDonald's puts out a new item and it's like you know it's like a microwave like TV dinner type thing and it's like they don't have to try. People will show up to check out what their new stuff is, and it'll be pink slime, and it'll be nasty. And WWE could have taken a similar approach of not trying with their game, and they've done that a lot in recent years with things like 2020, 2K 2020. It's like um, but yeah, I, there's a reason I'm putting an older game on here onto this list because I think that these older games actually played better, and you can just go through. You can recreate people like Rob Van Dam. You can recreate Jeff Hardy, even though I don't think he was in there this year. Um, well, this year is in 2006 or 2005. I think he'd been released because he'd been suspended for like I think like drug possession or getting pulled over or something stupid. He didn't do anything really very badly. I think he either got suspended or he failed a wellness policy violation or something. Um, something uh, something minuscule like that. Um, um, anyways, yeah, but there was a reason why it was a really awesome game to recreate, the Dudleys and recreate Jeff Hardy, recreate Rob Van Dam, anyone who I wanted, or even, people as they debuted. Like, I remember when CM Punk showed up on TV and I loved him, and how awesome his whole, like, rebellion message was, and how different that was from the status quo. Yeah, you could recreate whoever you wanted and create fantasy matches, or it was even fun to just watch them actually, watch the computer phase itself. See what Royal Rumble of a certain breed would look like with only ECW guys or only Marvel comic book heroes or something like that. There's any number of things you could do. Next up is my favorite sports game, I think, which would be MLB The Show 17. This series is legendary for portraying baseball pretty realistically, pretty well. Good physics, good amount of content, good amount of modes. Um, this is just my personal favorite. Some people prefer 19 or 20. They put out one every year. It's not that different from the previous year, so I'm just picking one on this series because otherwise they would be stepping on each other's toes in terms of why I picked them, in terms of what content they had. Because it's kind of like an update, and really that's what it should be. They should release these things as DLC or updates instead of entire games, in my opinion. But then they'd lose billions of dollars, so we know what's going to happen there. Um, Next up is going to be one of the best-selling games of all time, and one of my favorite games personally. I'm not gonna lie and try to be like a hipster and tell you that I have some, like something that I got off peer to peer in 2001. That's my favorite game. In actuality, this is one of my favorite games. It's Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. This game, everybody fucking loves this game. This game is awesome. I can't say any area. The soundtrack is amazing as you drive around in the car that you stole in the game. Um, The story is awesome unless you just want to put in the cheat codes like I did and go around and shoot prostitutes with your stolen AK-47. Anyways, but um, yeah. Anyways, sorry. Um, San Andreas uh, was perfect in pretty much every way. The story was amazing. The amount of different cars in there was amazing. How huge the game was, especially for the time this game came out in like the mid 2000s, and that's just ridiculous. It's still being played today. It's on the PS4 store, so you can get it now and play it again if you want to. Um, I think about that um, every so and then, because it's really got just an enjoyable crop of characters, and like I said, I'm a really music based guy mentally, so like the amount of different songs that are in here. It just introduced me to so much different music, and there's so much classic rock and so much hip hop, and so much awesome, 90s music and shit. Um, anyways, yeah, GTA San Andreas, it's obviously a controversial game because of the type of thing that's covered in there, the type of societal disarray. Um, but I think that this game, uh, it says what it has to say really elegantly. Um, I know that for a game where you steal cars and shoot people, that's a really weird way to put it. Um, it says what it has to say. Really elegantly, I think is really the way to put it. It's a beautiful game. This game is like a piece of art, I think. And I don't think that, with how big it is and how perfect its soundtrack is, how great its story and its voice acting is, it really doesn't cut any corner. And it's not even the type of game where, uh, for all of these things that you end up having to deal with a game that's subtitled or something like that across the bottom, and you have to read the whole story or something. There's really awesome voice acting in this game, and you really it's like watching a movie in the sense that you fall in love with the characters, and you develop your favorites. There's memes around these characters and things like that. And people, you know, I think will remember them in the same way that they do characters like Mario or Yoshi, Pikachu, Star Fox or something, Kirby. Yeah. Number 8 on here is going to be Fire Pro Wrestling Returns for the PS2. This game had probably the best overall creative wrestler system that I've ever seen. You can create a pretty much endless array of characters. You can also, I think, port in characters if you know how to, and pretty much get like a save, get like a hard drive save on, and get like a CAW Federation, create a wrestler federation onto your onto your onto your onto your hard drive. There's something on here that I'm not saying right, and I'm sorry for that. Anyways, but yeah, this game, even though it was in 2D, it recreated that kind of arcadey feel of the early 90s, late 80s, fighting games where you were in just like in a side-scrolling view, and you were pretty much fighting each other across a map like this kind of. Games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and lesser known but underappreciated games like Little Fighter 2 is an awesome game. a Japanese fighting game, kind of like one of those side-scrolling games where you get like overwhelmed with waves upon waves of enemies, and yeah, it's just they just pretty much they just like spawn on you. It's a really awesome game. Yeah, kind of like how the characters in Pokemon kind of spawn on you and like those like max raid battle type things. Um, but yeah, I'm going on a tangent here. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, back to Fire Pro Wrestling returns on this. This is what I was supposed to be talking about. Little Fighter is awesome. I'll add that to my honorable mentions uh, later, you know, prematurely, um, because uh, yeah, I really think that the overall amount of content in this game is just overwhelming at base. You get like 700 wrestlers, and you get a nearly endless amount of cost slots. You get the amount to change. You get the option to change pretty much every pixel of every color of everything. Uh, you can change the ring backgrounds and the ring aprons and stuff like that. Um, there's just nearly you can pretty much make it look like whatever you want. You can see some really crazy stuff. The Fire Pro community is really dedicated. Certainly, really dedicated. It's one of those communities that's created saves and mods and stuff. You know. Anyways, but yeah, this is probably the best game in the series. There's also a really good game for Game Boy Advance if you want to go back that far and kind of archive your playing a little bit. But yeah, that was an awesome game. They're both in the same 2D graphical engine, but the PS2 one obviously looks a little bit sharper and plays a little bit faster. Um, yeah, number 9 on here is going to be uh, the it's going to be the Pokemon Gen 3 games, the Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. And I remember just getting for my like 8th birthday or something, like my I got a Game Boy Advance SP, and I think I got Emerald. Um, yeah, that was just one of my favorite birthdays, and I played the shit out of that game until it literally wore out and would not turn on again. I played it. I played that game and myself. No, no, not myself, but I played that game into the ground pretty much. I, I broke that game. Uh, but yeah, the Gen 3 games are some of the most highly regarded in the Pokemon series. I would say that they're probably the best ones, along with like maybe Black and White 2. I really like Black and White 2 for their story, for the size of the map, for the overall sharpness in the world without it getting cut in size. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of the fifth gen Pokemon, but that's just me. And there are a lot of them, so uh, they're not bad. I don't think that they're the best designs in the series. Anyways, the third gen games though I think are probably the best overall ones in the Pokemon series for you know for the portables. Um, Honorable mentions. Now that we're getting down to the end of this list, we're going to talk about Road Rash a little bit. That was one of my favorite games for the early consoles. I remember playing on like my brother's, I think PS1, or was it his PS1? I don't know. Road Rash was mid '90s, a very arcadey game, and it had uh, kind of it's kind of characters and graphics in there kind of reminded me of like a Sublime album cover, like a Red Hot Chili Peppers T-shirt in terms of the type of art you'd see on it. Um, just very, you know, kind of like eyeballs popping out, and, you know, like your tongue sticking out, kind of like almost like a Nickelodeon logo. Anyways, but yeah, just a very arcadey, cartoony, fun, you know, quarter popper type of game. And even though, you know, it was obviously for the home console here in this case. Um, uh, let's get on to the second honorable mention, which was going to be Pokemon Black and White 2. I mentioned this game earlier. It's one of my favorites. I mentioned what I don't like about this about this installation of the series is that it just the Pokemon just aren't my favorites, even though I really like the games themselves are some of my favorites. Um, yeah, WWE Here Comes the Pain. Um, I I have to say that if this was my pick for best overall WWE game, I would have to probably pick this one for it, especially for its time. It's amazing how much they fit into here, and the you know especially the backstage areas, um, the roster size for the fact that it's in 3D. You know, you're not getting 700 2D characters that look like they're from 1987. You're getting pretty good characters for the time. It is 2003, so don't expect them to look all realistic or something. But they do look pretty good for their time for PS2 era stuff. You know, yeah. Anyways, number 10 on here is going to be another wrestling game. We're going to go a little farther back to the PS, not the PS, to the sorry about that, folks. Okay. Uh, Harlem Globetrotter animation cued. Now let's go on to number 10 on here, which is going to be the N64 games. WWF No Mercy. I'm sorry for how hard that was for me to get that out. Anyways, um, but yeah, this game was freaking awesome. The only thing that I wish it had more of, which is why I put it. This isn't a ranked list, but if I was ranking this list, I would probably put this game. This is one of my favorites, but I would probably put it at like number 8 because they don't give you enough cost slots. They only give you about 14, and I know it's for the era, for the generation. You have to consider that this is a Nintendo 64 game. That this is, you know, uh, 20 years ago now. So obviously, I'm not really sacrificing my rating on the game that much, but I just wish that it's almost because of how awesome this game is that I wish that it had more creator wrestler spots in it because of the fact that I wish I could make more in it because of how good the game is. So it's almost the game's awesomeness works against it here because I can't play it as much as I want to. It's almost like somebody taking your salt packets away, if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, uh, I would say that the AKI wrestling games and also the WCW games on the Nintendo 64, most of them at least, were pretty awesome. And I would say that this is probably the coup de grace. The this is probably I would say probably the overall peak of the AKI wrestling games. Um, yeah, this is probably. Um, I'm not gonna find the word that I'm looking for. My brain is just too stoned. Sorry. Anyways, uh, yeah, No Mercy is an awesome game. You can create pretty much everyone you want, and it's really fun to create to find the new faces. It looks a little bit weird. The completely still faces that you see on the 3D, really blocky figures, and it's fun to buy new ones and to buy new attire for them. But sometimes they look a little robotic, and I think that they could have done a little better on the game's graphics, even for the time. Um, So yeah, these are my top 10 favorite games of all time. Thank you for watching. I love you guys because you're you, and peace out.